Inside of all mankind lurks a parasite. One may nurture it, others may accept it, and some may never even know that they had it. It spread panic across the world, and despite all that it has done, no one has tried to stop it. I speak of a beast that goes by the name of opinions.
Call the police.
I've said it before, but I'm going to make this clear once again. I really like Steven Universe, but I know that it has problems. That's just my opinion. If you think that the show is perfect, or that it sucks and will always suck, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what you should think. That's never been the purpose of my videos. I'm just here to put my opinion out there, and maybe spark a little healthy discussion as well. Today, I want to discuss a negative of Steven Universe that I feel is really hurting the show. And no, it is not the fanbase. It's something that's almost been a problem since day one, but in the more recent episodes of the show released earlier this year, it's come to center stage, and has brought down the quality in a variety of ways. The biggest problem with Steven Universe is that it has become incredibly inconsistent in all areas. Sometimes the animation looks fantastic, sometimes it looks a little lazy. Sometimes the characters and story exhibit a great amount of growth, and sometimes it feels like we're still in the first half of season 1. Sometimes the episodes are aired weekly, and sometimes 39 episodes are released back to back. With the exception of the art direction, voice acting, music, and maybe a few other things that I'm forgetting, watching an episode of this show feels like a grab bag. You never quite know the kind of episode that you're going to get, so much so that I'm starting to understand why so many have lost faith in this series as of late. I feel that this problem may be at its worst during the second half of Steven Universe's 4th season. I'm not saying that all of the episodes I'm going to talk about are the worst in the series, because with maybe one exception, they really aren't. But I do believe these episodes prove my point the best. And also, I needed a hook for part 2 of this season 4 review series. So let's dive into what are surprisingly some of the more recent episodes of this show, as I prove to you what I think the biggest problem with Steven Universe currently is. To begin, the episode The New Crystal Gems is followed up by Storm in the Room, and honestly, these two feel like they came from entirely different shows. The New Crystal Gems uses the generic storyline of characters try to imitate other characters, but they fail and learn to be themselves. Not only does it abide by this trope rather than subverting it, which is a problem when the show goes out of its way to mess with viewers' expectations in many other episodes, but it involves 3 of my favorite side characters being put in the spotlight and working together. There's 1, maybe 2 moments of interaction between them that I really enjoyed, but besides that, it's a big waste of potential. What makes this episode even worse is that the next one is utterly fantastic. I know that both of the episodes deal with very different subject matter, but I know that the Craniverse is capable of writing great episodes, even if they are more slice of lifey. They just don't do it very often, as we'll see later. However, Storm in the Room is a great episode on its own. I love so much about it, even how it begins, with a red herring about Connie worrying about the whereabouts of her mother, only for her to show up minutes later. But this introduction serves to set up a theme about how strong a mother's love is, and Steven learns this the hard way when he conjures up a version of his own mother in her gem room. The idea that Steven had to basically trick his imagination into believing that he is spending time with his mother is quite sad, and the episode realizes this too, as it metaphorically and literally pulls the football away from Steven right before he kicks it. Steven remembers all the lies and secrets Rose kept from him, and quickly turns against her, but he begins to accept that she isn't perfect, that Rose is more like him than he thought she was, and that leads to Steven being content with the family that he has, rather than trying to imagine the perfect one. This is honestly one of the saddest episodes of Steven Universe, but it does a fantastic job slowly building to Steven's realization of the reality of the situation, and the atmosphere of the room when this happens is fantastic. Steven is also able to overcome his obsession about his mother's secrets completely on his own, with the room only acting as an echo chamber for his thoughts. It's a subtle sign of character growth, and I like how Steven's development in this season is very spread out, and not in a traditional back-to-back episode arc. It makes our protagonist feel more human, and less like a toy that bends to the needs of the series' plots. I've only scratched the surface with all the things that Storm in the Room did right. It really slipped under the radar of Steven Universe fans when it aired, and while it might not have any exciting new revelations or fight scenes, it's very well crafted and interesting from start to finish. I think that when many people think of bad Steven Universe episodes nowadays, they think about Rocknaldo. It is one of the weakest episodes in both the season and the series, but I don't think that it's flat out bad. Its biggest problem is that it's a Ronaldo episode, and Ronaldo is one of the worst characters in the show. He's just been an unlikable and stupid jerk in all of his major appearances, and he's not funny or interesting enough to carry most of the episodes that he's given the spotlight in. The only episodes I like with him in it are the ones where other characters play off of him, or when he appears for a brief moment in a supporting role. Because when Ronaldo is the main focus, the episode is a little hard to watch. The story structure in Rocknaldo is fine, and even some of Ronaldo's jokes were a little funny.
I'm here all the time. Look at that quality groove I've established.
But the majority of the episode is simply Ronaldo annoying Steven and the other gems and complaining about not having power against them. You may find Ronaldo to be hilarious here, and that's fine. I honestly don't care what you think about a fictional character with french fry-shaped hair, but for me, Rocknaldo was a slog to rewatch, and I hope that the Crewniverse stops making Ronaldo-focused episodes, or gives him something better to do besides harass Steven and the Crystal Gems. The internet's already got that covered. I really like the moral of Tiger Philanthropist, which is about satisfying fans and how you should do things the way you want to and not how others demand you to. As someone who creates art, or whatever these videos are, for others on a regular basis, the message struck a chord with me, as did some of the jokes, especially with Steven's revised act and a lot of Lars's lines.
I don't know. I don't even know what I want for breakfast half the time. I'm a complex individual teenage boy. Now get out of here and stop taking such a personal interest in my happiness and well-being!
However, Amethyst leaving the wrestling circuit without ever consulting Steven was a questionable way to kick off the episode, and seemed a little bit out of character. Plus, the wrestling humor got a little stale at times, and it was barely interesting enough to hold my interest. Tiger Philanthropist, boy that is a hard word to say, is an episode that I enjoyed, but it didn't even manage to get up to the quality of the episode that it was following up. It was just lacking the strong emotional core that helped that episode be more than just wrestling jokes. Also, it didn't have Ronaldo getting punched. I think that any episode could benefit from having that. Room for Ruby is an episode where its concept is its most interesting part. It manages to make Navy becoming a crystal gem a believable possibility. We've already had 2 villains in the show be redeemed, so it isn't out of the question that Navy could be redeemed too. The show has yet to get to the point where it's My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, where almost every single villain gets redeemed eventually, so it's able to play off of your uncertainty in a really great and somewhat dark ending. Well, the ending is great, except for how the gang shows no concern towards having their only way of traveling to space being taken away. They don't really give much of a reaction at all to what just happened, and the episode just kind of ends. Honestly, the ending could have had a little more time given to it, especially since the middle of the episode was a little formulaic and dull. Overall, Room for Ruby is an episode with a great plotline, but isn't supported by great comedy and tone. The casual approach it took to storytelling made the twist feel surprising, but I think that in turn it caused the rest of the episode to be rather uninteresting. From the title, you might expect Line 4 to be an episode that reveals some secrets to Rose's connections or expectations for Steven, since the past 2 Line episodes have done just that. But the point of Line 4 is that Rose did not have any expectations for him. Steven exists just because Rose wanted to have a kid. I like the message that not everything holds a secret, that some things should just be taken at face value. It's a good message for a show like this to have, since it's something that its online theorists should really consider from time to time. But to tell this message, the episode becomes a wild goose chase, with Steven getting an alternate version of his tape that turns out to be a red herring, made just in case Rose's child was a girl. The idea behind this twist is good and kind of funny, but the fact that the entire episode built up to this small reveal is disappointing. All throughout Line 4, we were promised to get an answer to Steven's magical destiny, and while the twist that there was no magical destiny to begin with is unexpected, it makes the whole episode feel pointless. Moments like Steven's monologue when he treks through the desert, or Steven and Greg's heart-to-heart are genuinely enjoyable, but they don't keep the episode from feeling unsatisfying. I'm fine with episodes that try to subvert my expectations, just as long as the episode itself is still good. But with Line 4, it seems like its main priority was subverting expectations, and while the episode itself is fine, I can't help but feel very frustrated by it. Dugout is not bad, but it's one of Steven Universe's least creative episodes. It centers on Connie's father, Doug, a stereotypical dorky dad who is trying to prove himself as useful to Connie and Steven. Doug isn't on the level of stupidity as, say, Homer Simpson, as he doesn't get the kids into trouble or constantly hurt himself, and I really love his voice, but I don't find him to have any interesting qualities that make him an exciting protagonist. This episode also tries to have some mystery elements, with our trio investigating a disturbance at the Funland amusement park, but this part of Dugout doesn't really work. I mean, I like Mr. Smiley, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over if a few garbage cans get knocked over at his park. This episode also relies somewhat heavily on comedy to support itself. Steven Universe is a show that only makes me laugh out loud every once in a while, and while I think the comedy is good, it is far from being one of the series' biggest strengths. The characters in this episode always have some sort of banter running between them, and while I'd be lying if I said that I never even chuckled,
Hey, Steven, you want to help ruin some teen's night?
Always.
I don't feel the need to come back to this episode for that. Dugout tries to do a lot of things and does them all decently. It's not a bad episode, but I wouldn't blame you if you had already forgotten that it existed. It also technically kicks off the final arc of the season, but the only connection it shares to the other episodes is the twist it has at the very end. However, the next episode has this same exact twist, so you could basically skip this episode and miss nothing. So not only does Dugout not offer much in the way of interesting content, but you could completely skip it and not miss anything on the show. Lars is a character that I have never really liked, mostly because in all of his appearances, he only acts like a jerk to all the other characters. He doesn't show any sort of lasting development, and keeps making the same mistakes over and over again. Outside of Lars and the Cool Kids, there hasn't been a Lars episode that I thought was great, mostly because that was the only one where Lars was really called out for being selfish after Steven got tired of dealing with his crap. But The Good Lars is an episode that lives up to its name, and is a good episode about Lars. It works for a very simple reason. Lars is given dimensions, and is more than just an obnoxious teen. Here, Lars' communication issues get in the way of him making friends, rather than his actions being justified simply because his whole character is that he's a jerk. It makes him feel like a person rather than the teenage Squidward he was before, though this change is long overdue for him, considering he is one of the bigger recurring characters. This doesn't make up for episodes where he acted poorly for no good reason, but I see his character in a better light now, and it's a good appetizer for what is to come for Lars within the next couple of episodes. Besides that great breath of fresh air for Lars, this is just a solid episode overall. I can't remember much that made me laugh, but I really like a lot of the character moments, especially the ones with Sadie and the Cool Kids. It's honestly a pretty pleasant episode. That is, until the ending, which raises an interesting question about what happened to Lars, and if he really decided to throw out his ube role at the last second. This mysterious tone gives The Good Lars a memorable ending, which also transitions beautifully into the final 2 episodes of the season.
It's nice to know we can still have peaceful days like this without any trouble.
Good night, Steven.
Good night, Sadie. Sadie never came home last night?
This season as a whole has been extremely laid back and has very low stakes, but the stakes are pretty much cranked up to an 11 for the 2-part finale. Are You My Dad is mostly setup, but it has a fantastic mysterious tone and keeps you invested by raising questions about where all of Steven's friends have gone, or if there are other gems on Earth that were raised by humans like Steven. Here, we are also introduced to Aquamarine and Topaz, who do an okay job of being the antagonists in these episodes. Their designs are nothing special. Topaz looks fine, but Aquamarine looks a little too simple. I think there just isn't enough going on with her face. It's so obviously just a blank slate for wacky expressions, though I do have to say she has some really great expressions. I like how Aquamarine is one of the more ruthless villains that we've seen so far, despite her cute appearance, and I think Topaz's practical use of fusion to imprison humans is really cool and a little creepy too. These two are cool foes for sure, though I think they take down the crystal gems a little too easily for my liking. Though I think the action in these episodes are still pretty good, despite the fights themselves being a little unfair. For now, I rank them as some of the lower gem villains in the series, as they are memorable, but don't have motivations or backstories that are very deep or interesting. Though that, and my opinions on them, could easily change if they appear more in the future. These 2 episodes also feel like the culminations of what many parts of the season have been building to. There are so many subtle continuity nods, and payoffs to themes and ideas that have been running throughout many of the previous episodes. Steven's friends, who have been a major focus for many of the episodes, are captured, and the ones taken were selected off of a list Steven accidentally gave to Peridot way back in episode 44. This honestly kind of blew my mind when I first saw it. Steven's decision to sacrifice himself to Homeworld after claiming to be his mom comes because he has accepted that he's a being separate from his mother, and tries to make up for what she has done.
You wouldn't have wanted this, but I do.
Also, this is referenced.
Like I was just here with Onion and all his friends. Where is he?
I warned you that it was gonna come back later. All these callbacks and high stakes makes this episode worthy of being a season finale, and it sets up so many possibilities for what could possibly happen to Steven in Season 5. These two episodes aren't perfect, but I think they were the best season finale since the return and Jailbreak, as they are exciting and held my interest all the way through. I just wish I could say the same thing about this season as a whole. So, to answer the question that I asked at the beginning of this season review, no, I don't think that Steven Universe has really gone downhill. Not to the point that it's a bad show anyway. I do believe that Season 4 was a step back from the past seasons, but if you look at the quality of episodes found in each of them, they're about on par with each other. The episodes focusing on side characters are just as good as they've always been. But the problem with Season 4 is that those kinds of episodes take up the majority of the season. The core Crystal Gems are only a focus of a handful of episodes, and in the rest they're either absent or take a backseat to another conflict. Having the most interesting and entertaining parts of your show take a backseat is fine every once in a while, but not for half of the season. I like some of the side character episodes for sure, but they work the best when sandwiched in between regular episodes, as breathers from the action. But here they're given more time and focus than they ever had before, and as a result, there is no action or anything that is super interesting. Seriously, there's like 3 fight scenes total. It also doesn't feel like much at all happened in the season, and Steven's arc about sorting out his issues with his mother is so spread out that you almost forget about it. I think this is probably the reason why many fans have stopped watching the show. Many of them already label every episode that focuses on a beach city citizen as filler, and they're infamously known as the weakest part of the show. Plus, Cartoon Network put the most focus on these episodes, airing each of those episodes a week apart, and airing all the arcs and bombs that only took a week. Fans had to wait a month just to see an episode like Paronaldo, and when you are consistently concerned if an episode is going to be good, then why even consistently tune in? If this season was going to devote so much time to its side characters, then it should have made its plots more exciting. Not every episode had to be an intimate character study, or one that felt like it belonged in a sitcom. Some of these episodes felt a little rushed in some respects too. I can't tell if there was supposed to be some sort of message behind Paronaldo, either one for the characters or a meta one towards the audience.
Bloodstone, ever since you got here, all you've done is boss me around. Who are you to tell anyone how to be a crystal gem? You're just a guy with a blog!
And this makes the episode confusing, on top of already being infuriating. Some of the best side character episodes came about when major parts of Steven's universe collided, and these episodes should work towards making the world feel like a coherent whole, instead of focusing on something that exists in its own little bubble, far from the quality and tone that we're used to. I know that side characters are simple by nature, and therefore they aren't as interesting as the main characters, but if I can get as much, if not more enjoyment out of the good Lars as I did with an episode like Greg the Babysitter, then why can't the whole season be almost as equally enjoyable? It may take some more time, but it really shouldn't be that hard to do, and I'm surprised that after over 130 episodes, this is still a problem. Even though this season did play things rather safe for much of its run, there were still so many great episodes. I can even say that I loved a few of them. With the exception of the finale and That Will Be All, I don't think any episode really surprised me or offered much in the way of character development, but many of them still excelled in atmosphere, comedy, and suspense. Even an episode like Adventures in Light Distortion, which I thought was only good, did an amazing job with those elements. The songs and background music were all great too. There were barely 2 episodes that I would classify as being bad, and I would recommend that you not skip this season when watching through the series. You may get more or less enjoyment out of watching some of the episodes than I did, and if you already watched through the season, I implore you to watch it again. Not only might you catch on to some of the subtle recurring theming like I did when I watched it again, but it's also a good way to get a refresher for Season 5, and it flows so much better when not split up by Cartoon Network's clunky premiere schedule. Yes, Season 4 is technically the worst season so far, but in some ways it improves upon the other seasons with strong running themes and fixing long-running problems, like finally making Lars likable. It takes steps forward, but also takes steps backward by playing things pretty safe. It may be a little below the quality that has been set for the show, but I still think that Season 4 of Steven Universe is good, and I give it a 7 out of 10. Before I wrap this up, I want to start a new tradition with these season reviews, and that's saying my top 5 best and worst episodes from a season after I review it. Although I will only be doing this with seasons that have more than 10 to 13 episodes. Trust me, I've learned how predictable making lists like that can be. Anyway, here's my top 5 worst episodes. Number 5, Dugout. The most amusing thing about this episode is how its name is a play on the term dugout. Other than that, it's about on par with the Scooby-Doo episode in terms of comedy and mystery. Number 4, Kindergarten Kid. A parody that completely misses the point of what it was trying to parody, but still has a few nice moments. Number 3, The New Crystal Gems. This episode is like a project where you think that it's gonna get you a good grade easily, but then you misread the instructions by accident. Like, the premise is amazing, but wait, they were supposed to make an episode that wasn't super cliche? Aw man, I guess they missed that part. Number 2, Rocknaldo. Boy, it sure was a great idea to have a character do nothing but be annoying for almost an entire episode. This is truly peak television. And number 1, Onion Gang. This episode is what it's like to cut an onion as slowly as possible for 11 minutes. They both make me want to cry too. And for my top 5 best episodes, number 5, The Good Lars. This is the kind of episode that Rocknaldo should have been. One that works to redeem a universally hated character and make everyone enjoy him just as much as the Crooniverse does. Lars still has a ways to go before I can honestly call him one of my favorite characters, but the fact that I'm even considering him to be one shows that this episode did a great job at what it set out to do. Number 4, Steven's Dream. This is a great start to the zoo arc, and number 3, That Will Be All, is a great ending. I like this one a little more than Steven's Dream for the great musical number, its invigorating ending, and just how well it pulled parts from the previous episodes in the arc together. Number 2, Mindful Education. I still stand by my opinion that the anime sensibilities of Takifumi Hori's animation make the sections he storyboarded look more jarring than most of the model inconsistencies on this show, but there ain't a thing to complain about in the rest of the episode. And it's an exciting episode with a cool song that gives closure to events from the previous season. And number 1, Storm in the Room. An episode with a Charlie Brown football joke turned out to be one of the saddest and conceptually darkest episodes of the series. It also did that while not being cheesy or overdramatic at all. Sometimes I wonder how the Crooniverse do it. If this show wants to get out of the small rut that it's been in for the past 2 seasons, it needs to become more consistent. It needs to focus more on what has worked in the past and expand upon that in every episode. A little break every once in a while is fine, but keep them to a minimum and push the action and drama to the max. I also think at this point they really should start to wrap up the series. If the show goes past 6 seasons or even 7, I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as it even is now. I actually think that the rest of season 5 will fix some of these problems that I've listed. From the trailer and clip that we've gotten, there seems to be a focus on a central conflict that involves many of the show's different characters in upcoming episodes. And that's the kind of thing I want to see more of on this show. I really don't want this random horror music video to come out of nowhere and just exist while an intergalactic war is about to begin. Just try to give every episode a purpose, or at the very least, make all of them interesting. In an interview conducted before season 3 started airing, Rebecca Sugar said that she is shooting to the moon with this season. Sugar also said that she'll be writing the team into a corner at the end of season 5. So go get hyped for the rest of season 5, but get super concerned that the show is going to be completely ruined in season 6.
Call the police.
I know that this is a tough time for fans of the show, since as I'm writing this, we have no idea if the upcoming episodes that we waited half a year for are going to be worth the wait. Like, I'm honestly super interested to see how Dewey Wins is going to turn out, considering the different kinds of clips that we've gotten from it. Waiting for something that you love is hard. Heck, I've seen much of the love for the show turn into hate just recently, but this series is one that I don't think deserves to be given up on. It was and always will be a show with flaws, just like everything else. Even though the show had a weak run of episodes or is being poorly managed by the network, doesn't negate how amazing it was or still can be today. If you've lost interest in the show, that's fine. And if you never liked it to begin with, that's fine too. But to all of those who are still on the fence, don't let a small flaw ruin your experience with what I think has been an amazing ride overall. Don't give up hoping. Believe in Steven. I'm Nintendo, and thank you for watching. Also, if you're wondering why I was in my room for this video when I was at the beach for part 1, then I think you may have forgotten the word of the day.